Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Hello and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription, the podcast where we help you understand everything related to D2C subscriptions. I'm your host, Matt Holman, and on this week's dose, we're going to be talking about emails. You can send more emails to your subscribers, so stay tuned to listen about how you can do that. Now, before we dive into emails, I want to take a moment to talk to you about B2B subscriptions. For those of you out there trying to add the B2B element to your subscription program, you know very well how complicated this is. Most companies trying to offer B2B as a solution need something more along the lines of custom pricing based on user as opposed to product. The ability to approve orders as they come in instead of just having them processed dynamically, and that a lot of your orders are a lot larger in dollar value size, but they're a lot less frequent because they're not happening as frequently as D2C subscriptions are. In addition to problems with integrating with ERP and shipping and timelines, B2B as a subscription offering is incredibly complex. But I'm here to tell you that there's actually an option on the market that has simplified those things dramatically. In the show notes, you'll see a link to an article created by Qpilot about a solution that they put together with Shopify Plus and their agency partner Reese Group for Nimbus Dental. It dives into all of the problems related to B2B subscriptions and how they're actually able to be solved and managed in a dynamic way that you would expect from a software solution. So if you're in the business for a B2B solution for your subscription program, I highly recommend reading this article so you can read more about what is possible and what is not just possible on Shopify Plus, but also with Qpilot. And for those of you that aren't aware, I am a co-founder at Qpilot. It's an amazing tech platform. That's actually how I first got into the subscription business. My partner there, David Bradley, is one of the smartest subscription people I know. And he and I ultimately founded Subscription Prescription because we saw an opportunity, or a need rather, for education and empowerment in a niche space inside of e-commerce. So as we dive into emails now, or as we transition into emails, I wanted to do a special episode dedicated to emails. I've talked about them a lot in past doses as part of the onboarding experience, increasing AOV. There's so many different ways that we use emails, especially within subscriptions. But I've been getting a lot of questions from email marketers, email agencies lately about emails as they relate to subscriptions. So I thought it made sense to do a dedicated episode all about those. And as we dive into emails with subscriptions, I know that you're all thinking the same thing, which is, I'm scared to send emails because it drives up churn. Every time I send an email to my subscribers, our numbers dip just a little bit because people cancel. I know that. So everything I'm going to share with you is going to be actually having that as context in mind. So I want you to believe me when I say I've got some opportunities for you to be able to do things a little bit differently and much better when it comes to subscriptions. And the first thing that I'm going to tackle on all of this is the transaction email. Regardless of the state of your subscription program, whether you're new, whether you're enterprise, or somewhere in between, I can guarantee you that there is some opportunity within your transaction email for improvement. There are so many brands that I audit on a daily basis that are doing just the default templated version that they're getting from Recharge or Stay or whatever subscription platform they're using that says, hey, your upcoming order is about to process, click here to make changes, right? I hate that. All that does is remind somebody they have a subscription and you can click here if you want to cancel, right? It's very lazy. I get why you haven't improved it yet. I don't mean that to be a personal criticism or a personal attack of you, but the bottom line is that needs to be better. That's where we're going to start on emails, is I want you to make sure that you're putting that email into SendLane or Klaviyo as a transactional email so you have more control and get out of that kind of templated method that you're just getting from the subscription platform. And the second thing I want you to do is start thinking about making this a little bit more on brand, right? If you're selling a gluten-free bread, I want you to lead with talking about how you're helping people get tasty bread when they're sensitive to gluten, right? If you're a pet food company, you're talking about how you're improving the lives of people's pets. I Heart Dogs, who I talk about a lot on this show, they donate a portion of every sale to feeding shelter pets. They lead with that. Your next order feeds this many pets. If you're a fun coffee brand, on brand, just make it fun, interesting, compelling. Lead with some copy about how your product, your brand is helping this person. Remind them of that. Then you can also include some UGC or a quote or something from somebody to, again, really drive home how this subscription can help people or is helping people. And then instead of talking about, hey, just click here to edit or manage your order, you can always share something a little bit more along the lines of, we believe 100% that you have full control of your subscription. So if you'd like to make any changes so that it's personalized to your schedule, you can click here. Make it feel a little bit more empowering so that those people feel like, oh yeah, I have that kind of power. I don't necessarily need to go cancel right now because I could do that whenever I want, right? So the transactional email is a great place to start in making that better for your subscribers. Now, additionally, you can include upsells. You can include add-ons that people can use to, hey, add this next item to your order. You can get into all of that. One of the beautiful things about, like, say, using like Klaviyo on subscription emails is that you can use quick actions where people can usually basically click something, do a pause, skip. There are a couple of solutions out there. Get ARPU is one of them. Another that I'm a really big fan of because they're a Utah-based company where I'm at is called Zamo. And they're both doing a great job of trying to enable like actions from right within the email item. So for example, with Zamo, they're making it really easy just to click to add an item to the next order. So you don't actually even get into the portal, right? Working on skips, swapping flavors, things like that. So a lot of like dynamic portal controls that you would normally expect to happen in the subscription portal can happen right in the email. And the beautiful part about this is if you can get somebody just to click on something within the email, then you don't run the risk of them going into the portal where they're going to see the cancellation button and maybe get frustrated by that. So keeping that in the email as much as possible is a great way to reduce churn. It's also a great way to just make things a lot easier and improve the overall experience on your subscribers. Okay, now the next big thing that I want you to be thinking about when it comes to emails and the things that you can improve is an onboarding or welcome series for email. Now, one of the things I'm going to include in the show notes to this episode is a guide, a template that you can just steal right from me that I made for a fictional company, a fictional gluten-free bread company. And I wrote all these. I actually used ChatGPT to help make these things kind of dynamic and fluff them out so they're a little bit more interesting and compelling. And there's a lot of them. Got quite a few of these that you can kind of go through and steal from. But I'm going to walk through some examples of different email types you should be using and why here in just a moment. Okay, when we're talking about welcome series, one of the reasons why I think this is such a huge opportunity is that, well, realistically, your goal with a subscription should be to get people to use your product. I know that sounds obvious, but again, the biggest opportunity for retention is to try to get your product in as a habit right away. If that's like pet food and people have to feed it to their dog, that's great. But for most of us, it's like a supplement or a coffee or something a little bit new. We're trying to make sure that people are starting to use those products. Okay, so the better job we can do at increasing adoption up front through a welcome series email campaign or email flow, I should say, is going to do a better job at driving up your retention numbers. Now, the second thing that I want you to think about is within that first 7 to 10 days of a subscription, your risk for canceling because of an email hitting their inbox is essentially the lowest that it will be throughout the life cycle of that subscription. Okay. So within that first 7 to 10 days, especially those first few days before the package actually arrives, that person's still really eager and excited about learning more about what they've got coming to them, right? So that is your biggest opportunity to do a few different things, which we're going to talk about. Now, the first email that should go in this flow or this sequence is really about onboarding or welcome somebody to the subscription. So you have an order confirmation that goes out. This is welcoming somebody to the subscription, right? So letting them know that you have a subscription order, letting them know these are the perks and benefits that come along with your subscription. You get, say, 20% off. You get this kind of gift at month this, whatever other perks or benefits come with that program. You want to have it all there. And then you have that link to either set up your account or you click here to manage your account. That email you want to make just as straightforward and compelling as possible from a just reminding them of perks and benefits, but it should feel a little transactional because you're trying to just, hey, this is what's what. And if people say they have questions about their subscription in their future, they're going to go searching for their email. That's the email that you want to have come up. It's going to remind them of what they have coming to them and how they can manage it. Okay. That's the first email. But after that, there's a lot of other emails we can get into and getting a lot fancier. I know that a lot of brands using this sequence to try to like promote a sale or another option. Again, I think that is a mistake. while you might get some extra sales initially, if somebody's just subscribed to your product, you have the potential for like a lifetime relationship. And going for an extra sale, it's like, hey, you propose to somebody, they say yes. It's like, oh, by the way, I want you to also pay for the wedding. It's like, no, we want to make sure we get them to the altar first before we try to upsell them onto anything or get them any fun surprises. One of the best ways to do this is explaining your product or explaining usage. So I'll come up with a bunch of different examples that I've seen in the past. If you're selling a device, right? Like say an electric toothbrush, an electric flosser, an electric head shaver, you're really all about explaining how the product works. And I know it might sound really simple. It's an electric toothbrush. You put it in your mouth, it goes back and forth. But realistically, if somebody's never used an electric toothbrush before, or if there's something a little bit different about yours, you want to explain to them about the benefits of using that, right? Say using an electric toothbrush means that you're going to be able to fight cavities this much better. It actually cuts down on the amount of time you have to spend brushing, or it increases your reach. You want to basically share all this like really important information related to why it's so important to use an electric flosser or electric toothbrush. If you're using the head shaver, you're explaining the differences to people between an electric razor and a straight razor. If we're talking about, say, like coffee, matcha tea, for example, it's like how you blend the perfect cup of matcha, pet food, supplements. We're trying to do everything we can to explain, educate, tease on how well this works so that that person is interested, excited. But it's also a great opportunity to address any common questions that come up in your subscription, right? If somebody's confused about how something works, if somebody's confused at how long it takes to see results, like say if it's a diet supplement or a health supplement in that regard, that's also another opportunity to explain those types of things. And depending how you want to do it, you can split those out, right? You can do an email that talks all about the importance of adopting it, taking it every day. Maybe there's a challenge or something. And then you can follow up with another email that talks about like health benefits or sharing like user stories, customer success stories of using their product, of sharing like their experiences with that. You can have those actually separate emails. The goal for great email writing, there should be a single goal for each email. You're either trying to share a piece of information, you're trying to get them to click something, you're trying to get them to think or believe something after having read that email. That should be the goal of that. And you can use an email a day over the course of 5, 7, 10 days on some of these. So we have product adoption, explaining usage. There's emails related to sharing success stories. Another great example is depending on what your product is, if there's like recipes, right? Like I mentioned, gluten-free bread. You could include a lot of really great recipes for like favorite avocado toast, favorite turkey club, things like that, right? If we're talking about like a, hot sauce, right? Some really fun, spicy ways to use hot sauce in your recipes. Fresh fish, or if you're having like a meal box subscription, talking about ways that food gets prepped, ways you can make it more interesting, exciting, combining it with certain things. Again, a great example might be if your first order of fish is on the way and you're giving some examples of like great wines that pair with that type of fish or those types of meals, right? We want to try to, again, create additional value and get people thinking about how this is going to be part of their life, if that makes sense. Okay, a couple other types of emails that you can include are founder story or brand story. When we're talking about like the reasons why somebody should like the product or believe in the product, for most of you, you have a founder that has some really compelling reasons behind why they did those things. It also feels really personable, often coming from a brand behind that founder. If you don't necessarily have a strong founder story, or that's not part of like the ethos of your brand, you can rely on the brand story, which I'll unpack a little bit. But a founder story is a great way, especially if there's a story of why they created what they did that relates to why somebody might buy it from them. So the gluten-free bread is a great example. That founder has celiac disease. They tried a lot of different bread options in the past, but they could never find something, and they just missed the taste of a great turkey sandwich, right? And so they started playing with a lot of their own gluten-free recipes, started baking a lot of it on their own, and then unlocked the secret that is the genesis of the brand that you're buying from today, for example. So the beauty of that is if I have a gluten sensitivity and I'm reading that story, I'm going to relate very heavily to this idea of trying other things, right? Sensitive skin, if we're talking about certain types of like lotion, right? Supplements with weight loss, training for a race or something like that, bad sleep. there's so many different problems in the world that your product is geared to try to help solve. So being able to put a founder story around how they came at trying to solve that problem can be another compelling email you can include. On the brand side, the slight difference between those things is a brand can also talk more about things that are important to, like, say, formulation, quality of ingredients, a cause that you give back to. A lot of brands like to lead with that type of email in these types of series, and I like seeing that a little bit down the road. I like getting, again, as I mentioned, into adoption, answering common questions up front, because we really, really want to get people to use the product. And then we're going to reinforce down the road differences with, again, ingredients, something really compelling about what your brand does. And again, if you have both of those, if you have a great founder story and that brand can be separate, again, you can have those as separate emails. And I'm going to come back to product usage and adoption again. I think this should be several emails in this sequence. You can come at the problem a few different ways. But again, everything you can do to try to educate someone, to get them excited, to overcome common questions or issues. Again, with most brands, when I audit their subscription program, I'll generally ask them this question, like, what's a big complaint or reason that we see in the cancellation reasons why somebody doesn't like it? Is it the flavor? Is it like they don't think it works, right? Is there, skepticism around how the product can work or be effective? What can we do to make that, to like overcome those types of things? I've mentioned this as an example before, but a brand that I love and I use is called X Endurance. They do this where it's like you're basically getting an email on their challenge of like how you take their supplement and how you get started with it and incorporate it into your exercise activity, right? That type of content is really, really powerful because you're driving adoption. You're pushing for somebody to have this be in their daily life. Okay, and the final couple emails that you can think about, again, I mentioned on the brand one, but you can also just do a specific one related to unique benefits or properties. Again, if you're doing something like, say, with a special type of like turmeric in your ingredient, or there's something special that you have in there, maybe again, how it's formulated, you can have a specific email related to like unique benefits of that product, right? Because not everybody is going to like necessarily be drawn to that type of thing, but there are a lot of people that will be that are buying from you. And the final piece as an email opportunity is again doubling down on reminding people of subscription perks and benefits, whether it's just discounts, whether that's getting gifts over the life of the subscription, whether they have access to other things, whether they're a part of a community, or there's content. There's always going to be some other piece that you're trying to like make people feel like they're a part of. That needs to be an email in this series as well. Okay, and again, the goal here with these types of emails is we're driving at trying to increase adoption of the product. We're trying to overcome common questions or hangups or roadblocks that people run into. We're trying to get them excited about the product and educate them as much as possible. Because again, as a brand, you don't want to be sending a ton of these emails after the product arrives or in month 2, because again, those are usually times where you're reminding people they have a subscription and maybe they think that like they don't need that. But the better job you can do up front of talking about the quality of the ingredients or the price that it takes to like make this amazing thing for them means somebody's less likely to be price sensitive down the road because they've been reminded about how like the high quality of the product. Again, issues related to adoption. One of the common reasons why people cancel subscriptions is because they have too much product. People have too much product because they either don't know how to use it, they're getting too much or too little based on the cadence they need, or they're just not using it as part of their daily routine, right? And so those emails are another opportunity to do that. I also like to throw inserts in here because the insert is another opportunity at that point of just like interacting with the product for the first time. If you can address a couple of those really most common questions or issues or roadblocks, maybe a story, like a quick little blurb from how other people have seen it or benefited. Similar, you take a lot of the perks or benefits from those emails and condense it down into a little card, some of the highlights, maybe a recipe book. One thing I love from Breakaway Matcha is like how to make the perfect cup of matcha tea, like first time. Just love that as an experience. That's what gets people hooked on a subscription, is having them have really positive experiences. Okay, and again, as a bonus on this episode, I'm going to have a link to this doc. It is incredibly thorough on showing like the goal, the outcome, and all these different types that I've covered with examples. They're really, really beefy, so feel free to like cut a lot of it out so that it's not necessarily like these massive novels you're sending to people. But I do believe in giving you as a resource more than you need so that you can narrow that down to what you need to be able to send your customers. Okay, that's it for this week's dose. Again, I cannot stress enough the importance of having a great welcome series to onboard your subscribers and doing a better job on transactional emails. And finally, for those of you that are working on B2B subscriptions, I highly recommend you go take a look at QPilot's case study to see how they're solving that problem for brands like Nimbus Dental and how it could potentially work for you. It's an incredibly informative article going through all the different problems and what a solution looks like. That's it for this week's dose. I'll see you next week. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.